Well, Happy New Year! I hope your 2022 is off to a great start. It can't get much worse than 2021, can it? So I thought it'd be fun to look back at some of my best and worst of 2021. Maybe it'll give you a few ideas. Well, let's get to it. Well, this is Brent from Cascade's Homebrew. I'm filming this one on New Year's Eve 2021. So I took a little break over Thanksgiving to spend time with family. That set back focus on the channel a little bit. And then a few weeks later, I ended up getting a case of COVID. So I'm fully vaccinated, so I think that significantly lessened the symptoms that I had. I was scheduled to get my booster the week of Christmas, but instead I spent up spending the week of Christmas and through the Christmas holiday kind of recovering here at home alone. That was a bummer. So that ended up setting back focus on the channel a little bit more. I'd hoped to get this video out by now, but oh well. So I had a few beers going in the fermenter, so that gave them a little bit more time to mature before I packaged them. So I still have a little bit of congestion now and then. You might be able to hear it a little bit, but I'm feeling much better. Well, that's enough of that. Let's get on to talking about beer and homebrewing. So I've got the envelopes here, well, some folded over pieces of paper. So I wanted to look back at some of my best and some of my worst or most disappointing of 2021. So I've been brewing beer for over 25 years, but I still like to try out new things, maybe tweaking a recipe, maybe trying a different process, maybe trying out a new ingredient. What about you? Any best or worst of 2021 that stand out to you? Well, let me know in the comments. Well, let's get to the envelopes. The first category I have is best and worst YouTube video. So I launched the channel just this year, 2021. Let's look back at what I think maybe some of the worst or some of the things that could use improvement. So I only have a couple nominees in my worst category. So these are ones that maybe I felt like I could improve on. The first one, brew great beers on your stove with small batch brew in the bag. It's a great video with a great topic. That was the first video they uploaded to the channel. The overall content I think is great, or the idea. And I've learned a lot since then. The audio on it is pretty poor. I was using the built-in camera microphone and I was trying to talk while I was brewing. I've kind of learned a lot since then. But the video that I'm going to give the award to in this category for worst homebrew video was my Build a Great Saison, recipe background and evaluation. Part of it I'm disappointed in because I think it's a topic that's really important. The idea, how do you build up your own recipe and what is the process that I've gone through? But I think it kind of was poorly executed. So I took a little too much of my past experience at work with PowerPoint presentations. This one looked more like a Zoom meeting with PowerPoint slides. I think I could do better. Alright, now let's get into my best homebrew videos of 2021. The first nomination is how to find great homebrew recipes. I thought this one covered an important topic for mid-level brewers. I thought it was well structured and useful, so I had pretty good B-roll or background video and content to back up my discussion. The other video I'm proud of, closed keg transfer without an expensive fermenter. I thought it was a well done video on a useful topic. I'd like to do more of these sort of how-to quick hit videos. The other one I'm proud of, my Brew a Fresh Hop IPA, homegrown Chinook hops. I thought it combined good info both on growing hops and also about brewing an IPA with those hops. It was more than just a grain to glass video of a random recipe. It was a pretty short video, about 12 minutes long. I kind of feel that 12 to 15 minutes is sort of a sweet spot for a grain to glass video. You know, and the video production on that one I thought was pretty decent. I've been learning as I've gone and I've improved, and that one showed it. But the winner in the category for my best homebrew video of 2021 was what to expect from a homebrew competition. So it actually took me quite a bit of thought and back and forth to think of what I would cover in that video. I felt like the video had a good mix of useful info, and also I received feedback from several people that said that they saw that video and it made them interested in entering competitions. So hopefully that video will get some people interested in competitions, give a little insight into what it might take to brew beer for competitions and what to expect as far as feedback of a competition. The next category we have is the 2021 Best and Worst CascadesHomebrew.com articles. In case you don't know, I do have a website, CascadesHomebrew.com. The goal of the site is more article based. That was my original focus, with the idea that videos would just be there to back up some of the articles. Now I've been focusing a little bit more on YouTube lately. But out of the few articles I was put up there, let's look at what I think might be some of the worst articles, or ones that I was just a little disappointed with. So one thing I would say, the thing I'm least satisfied is that I have a lot of ideas for articles that never got published. I think it was mostly that I just kind of devoted more time to the YouTube channel. I also find writing articles actually is kind of hard. Just coming up with the text, coming up with the graphics, coming up with the structure. I hope to put more effort into that next year. hopefully with individual articles and then also articles that back up videos. But the one article up there that I'd say is my one that I'm least satisfied is my one about English Porter building competition beers. It covered generally the same topic as that Saison video, and I think they both had structure problems. This one, when I look back at it, it's a little confusing about what recipe I recommend and what ingredients. I think I'm going to more shift toward just recipe based with then some background on what you can do to tweak the recipe. I think that structure will work a little better. And then we look at the best articles in 2021. So one I'm going to ask you to have is why make a yeast starter? So I thought this was an informative article. It pulls in information that's a little hard to cover just in a talking video. I also like how it coordinated with my video on making a yeast starter. So it provided data and other alternatives for yeast starters that kind of backed up what I showed in the video. And the winner in the category for Best Cascades Homebrew Article of 2021 is actually a series of articles on stovetop brewing. This was sort of my impetus for launching this website. I'm really passionate about the idea of small batch stovetop brewing. So I came up with some articles. I think they're really well structured. So it's got a series of 3 articles up there on stovetop brew in the bag, brewing about 2.5 gallon batches on your stovetop. The first one talks about why I think it's so great in an overview. The second one talks about the equipment that you would need. And the third one kind of walks you through the process. They kind of tie in with my video on stovetop brew in the bag process. I hope to cycle back, maybe improve the video over time. The next category, 2021, Best and Worst New Ingredient. So I tried out a lot of new dried yeast this year. That was one of my focus. So this list is dominated by dried yeast, but it's not 100% dry yeast. So let's look at what I thought were the worst ingredients of 2021, or the ones I was just a little disappointed with. The first one was that Fermentis WB06 Blonde that I brewed. I really just did not care for the yeast character. It might work better in a wit, or maybe at a different temperature. The other one that I was disappointed with was the Cali Ale dry yeast. Again, I thought this was the same as US-05, and I had good luck with it in the past, but this year I just ended up with 2 batches that I just did not care for. They had some off flavors. I'm not sure if I just got some bad packs. I think I'll just probably stick with either US-05 or BRY-97. But let's look at the best new ingredient, 2021. Number 1, verdant yeast. So as of the launch of this video, I probably don't have the video on this one out, but I brewed a really solid hazy pale ale using verdant. I think it looks like a great yeast. It might be a good one in general for hazy beers, and also might be just a good general yeast for English style beers. So another ingredient that I was really happy with is another yeast, the Lallemand Abbey yeast. So I was really impressed with the Belgian Blonde that I brewed with that. I thought it was a great beer. So I really want to try out this yeast in more Trappist. I've been using WLP 530 with good luck, but I'd like to see if I could find a dry yeast that's easy to use and makes great beers. So another beer that I was really happy with was that BRY-97 that I used in my fresh hop Chinook beer. That's this beer right here. It's a really enjoyable beer. So BRY-97, it could be my new go-to yeast for, say, American IPAs or American Pale Ales. I'd like to do a side-by-side with BRY-97 and compare it directly to US-05 or maybe to WLP-001. And the winner for the best new ingredient of 2021, surprise, not a yeast. It was my Murphy and Root malts. So early in the year, a friend of mine made a trip to Charlottesville, Virginia. He was able to pick up some bags of Murphy and Root malt. So I ended up getting 3 different base malts and a variety of special malts. I still have a lot of them available. So I'm not sure if the Murphy and Root malts made beers that were that much better than malts I could just get at my local homebrew shop. But I thought it was pretty cool using a local craft maltster ingredients. I'm going to go ahead and move forward using more of them. We're trying out some other craft maltsters as well. The next category, 2021 Best and Worst New Equipment. Let's start off looking at what I thought some of my worst equipment that I acquired in 2021. None of this is really bad. I think it was more just a buyer's remorse. I could have done something different. The first one on the list is the glass version of the Little Big Mouth Bubblers. I really love the Little Big Mouth Bubblers in their size and their construction. They hold about 1.5 gallons total, so they're great for getting about a gallon of finished beer. For a while they didn't have the PET version, so I bought some glass ones. I think the glass ones, the hole cut out for the spigot is just really rough. I ended up having to get a replacement for one of them because it was cracked around where they cut out for the hole. Overall the glass is just really thick, they're pretty heavy, they're a little awkward. So I guess I wish I had just started off getting the PET versions of those, which I ended up getting some. I think the PET ones are just better executed. And the winner of the category of worst equipment was my spunding valve. It's not necessarily a bad piece of equipment, So I kind of went old school on it and pieced together the parts and the valves. So I think there's just better options these days. Keglin makes a really nice valve that I think would have been better. One of the first valves I have didn't work, so I ended up having to get a replacement for that as well. I don't necessarily have a lot of confidence in how well it's going to work or how accurate the valve is. Let's look at some best new equipment. So the things that almost made the list was my new Jaded Hydro Chiller. So I won it in a competition. It looks like it's going to be a great addition, but I've only used it in one batch so far, so I definitely can't declare it a winner. Another one that almost made the list was my PET versions of the Little Big Mouth Bubblers. Problem is I haven't used them yet, but I think they're going to be a great addition for small batches. And something else that was definitely in running for the list was my submersible pump, but I'm going to talk about that more in a different category. So a couple of real nominations for my best equipment of 2021 were some Gorilla Quick Disconnects and Jet Nozzle. These weren't cheap. It's definitely well over $50 for various parts. I wasn't sure if I needed them. I got the quick connects when I got the Jaded Chiller. I thought it would be a good way to quickly connect my hoses, but then I found all kinds of uses for them. I ended up ordering some more. The jet nozzle ended up being a great addition for filling a kettle. Another piece of equipment that I really enjoyed was my postal scale. I already have 2 scales, so I didn't necessarily need one. My previous scale maxed out at 10 pounds. This one maxed out at 55 pounds. So it's a great way to measure a full amount of grain needed for a batch. It's also a great way to measure things like CO2 tanks or kegs to see how full they are. So the winner for the best new equipment of 2021 is my seedling mat and temperature control combo that I got. So I'm really happy with the extra utility that having a heater adds in, both for fermenting, say, kveiks or keeping beers warm to complete fermentation. It increases my capacity. I'm also very happy with how well the seedling mat works. I like it a lot better than my little space heater. And overall, it's just a low-cost addition that's really expanded my capacity for brewing and fermentation temperature control. The next category, 2021, Best and Worst Process Change. So like I mentioned, I'm always trying out new things, tweaking my process, see if I can improve a little better. Sometimes it works out, sometimes maybe not so much. Let's look at some of my worst process changes in 2021. So I'm not sure if this exactly started in 2021, but somehow I got into the idea that it would be a good idea to pour my full 5-gallon batches into the fermenter. So I think I just had really good luck pouring my 2.5-gallon batches through the strainer and funnel into the fermenter. I thought that would apply equally well to 5-gallon batches. Turned out it was just kind of awkward. It tended to slop around a little too much. It was kind of heavy. It definitely makes me get motivated to try to get a ball valve installed in my kettle. I think that would be the real solution. But I've gone back to using my auto siphon to transfer my 5-gallon batches out of the kettle. That works okay. The worst process change, I would say, or the thing I need to work on, is that dry hop with magnet techniques. I've tried it for 2 different batches, so I don't know if I just need to figure out a better process, better equipment, or if I just need to kind of scrap the idea. I'm not sure if I'm 100% keen on the idea of hops hanging out in a humid environment for a week before they get lowered down into beer. I haven't completely given up on it yet though. So if we look at my best process changes in 2021, the first one is kind of related to the dry hopping one. Just my overall dry hopping process. This one's still a work in progress, but I'm learning more about what I like with my process, how to dry hop, what temperature I want to dry hop. Still have some more to learn, but I'm improving. So another change that I'm happy with is adding a whirlpool or a steep into beers like an American IPA or an American Pale Ale. So I was reluctant to include this into those type of recipes because it adds about a 20-minute into the day and it's a little bit of a manual process with my equipment. But I definitely found you get a lot more hop character out of those hops than you do with just adding hops that flame out and then chilling the batch down. Another new change was my Beersmith upgrade. So for years I've just been using Beersmith Mobile and it's worked for me. So I was never really happy with the integration between Beersmith Desktop or Beersmith Mobile. Actually there was probably complete lack of integration between the two. So I really wanted Beersmith on my phone more than I did on my computer upstairs. But Beersmith recently came out with a web editor that I think is pretty good. So I recently upgraded to get a license. So I've been pleasantly happy with the features of the web editor. I've also been pretty happy with how you can exchange recipes between the cloud and mobile. So I think moving forward, the combination of both mobile and web, and then the ability to use the desktop if I need it, I think it's going to be a great addition. So the best process change for 2021 for me was using my submersible pump. Kind of fits a little bit of an overlap of best equipment and best process change. So I picked up an inexpensive submersible pump, which kind of fits my frugal nature. So I've used the pump for several batches to circulate ice water through my immersion chiller. It also helps with the kind of awkward connection I had to make to get my immersion chiller connected to my sink. I've also used a submersible pump to circulate cleaning fluid through tubing. I think it would be a great addition for that and maybe some other cleaning processes. Alright, and we get to the final category. Best and worst beer brewed in 2021. So what were my worst beers in 2021? What were the beers that kind of left me a little disappointed? The first one on my list was my Westover IPA, which is an American IPA. It's kind of weird that it's on the list since it won a gold medal in a competition. But over the past years, I really put a lot of effort into my American IPAs. I feel like I'm making some great ones. And that one just wasn't up to my level. So I think a lot of the issues were just some off flavors from the Cali Dry Ale that I used. I'm looking forward to brewing another batch with a different yeast. So another beer that I wasn't very happy with was my Belgian Blonde that was fermented with WB06. So WB06 just wasn't my preference or fit for this style. I could potentially see where the flavors of WB06 may fit into, say, a wit beer with spices. Or maybe if it was fermented at a different temperature, it would give different characteristics. But with my temperature in the recipe, I just didn't like it. The other one, that low ABV hazy IPA. It was a good learning experience. I took a lot away from it, but the beer itself wasn't that enjoyable. I think it just suffered from the over-attenuation issues, whatever the cause of that was. It ended up having just a lot of hop astringency without any kind of backbone to back up the hops. But my number one worst beer was that Extract IPA kit that I brewed. It just wasn't a good beer. It had very little IPA character to it. It was just kind of dominated by the sort of roasted cardboard sweetness. I don't dump a lot of beers, but I ended up dumping about 4 gallons of that one. I just couldn't enjoy drinking it, and I couldn't enjoy serving it to my friends. Alright, let's get to the category maybe I'm most excited about. Best beers brewed in 2021. The first one was my English Porter. It did pretty well in a competition. This is a batch that I've cycled over the recipe a couple times. I brewed 2 batches actually, I believe, this year of the same recipe. Both batches turned out well, so that's a sign I'm able to execute on that recipe. Another one of my favorite beers brewed in 21 was my Belgian Double. So Belgian Double is just one of my favorite styles. It's got a lot of that nice Belgian character that you might find in a quad, but it doesn't knock you on your butt with the ABV that a quad has. So I've gone through a couple iterations of that recipe. I really like that batch. I have a couple ideas I might tweak that in the future, but I was really happy with how that one turned out. Another of my favorite beers brewed in 21 was my Saison. It's not a single batch. I brewed multiple batches of Saison this year. All of them turned out really nice, using different yeast, using a little bit of different ingredients. So Saison is quickly becoming one of the beers that I always want to have around, either on tap or in bottles, kind of like an American Pale Ale has been for me for most of my brewing career. And the winner for the best beer brewed 2021 was my Hazy Pale Ale made with Voss. So the first iteration of this recipe, I wasn't completely happy. I felt like I missed my target a little bit, but I kind of stepped back, embraced the orange character of Voss. So what I loved about that beer, one, it's kind of a unique beer. It's not an American Pale Ale, it's not an American IPA, it's not a New England IPA. It also fits into that sort of sessionable, around 5.5% beer. It's got lots of flavor, lots of hop aroma. So it turned out just to be an excellent beer, and I like that it's kind of unique, doesn't fit into any specific category. Well, thanks for spending some time with me today. Make sure you let me know about your best and worst of 2021. And also, what are you looking forward to in 2022? If you're new to the channel, make sure you check out some of the content that I created this year. And also, click that subscribe button so the new content I have planned for 2022 shows up in your feed. So cheers to a wonderful 2022 to you and your family.